Hello everyone. In this tutorial, we're going to learn how to make a simple escape room using Unity's XR Interaction Toolkit. So let's get into it. Alright, so here we are in Unity with a fresh URP project. Just got finished building it. And so we're going to get started. Here I got a little checklist of what we're going to do to build this simple escape room. So first thing, when I first get into a URP project, or when I first get into a project, I go to File, Build Settings, and then I switch it over to the platform that I'm going to build to. Since I'm building for the Quest, I'm going to switch it to Android. If you're building for standalone, you can just leave it on Windows, Mac, and Linux. But since I know my final device is going to be the Quest 2, I'm going to just switch it over to Android and hit switch platforms. And I do this at the beginning just so it doesn't take a long time later on. It's best to do this part at the beginning of your project before you have too many files in your project. When that's done, I'm going to exit out of here. Well, I can go to my player settings. You see there's a couple issues here. We can get rid of this OpenGL2 there, and that fixes that issue. And that's all we have to do for now. We'll come back later to change some other things as well. I'm gonna exit out of that. See what's in my console. See if I can clear these errors here. Yeah, we're good there. Then I'm gonna start importing things. So I'm gonna go to Window, Package Manager, and first I'm going to go to My Assets. Let it load my assets. I'm gonna put in medieval. I am going to be using this medieval tapping pack here, and I'm going to use it just to build my environment so we have something nice to look at and we're not just building in like blocks and things. It's free on the asset store, so if I visit the asset store right quick, so here you can see the medieval tapping pack. This is what I'm going to be using in the project to build the environment. So you can go ahead and grab this, or if you already got some things that you want to use, you can go ahead and do that. It's not necessary that you use this, but this is what I'm going to use for my environment. So I'm going to exit out of that. So if this is your first time seeing this, just hit add to my assets. And then when it's done adding to your assets, then you can import it into Unity. I'm going to exit out of this. Just go ahead and import. Import again. Now that we have the Medieval Tavern Pack, we're going to start importing the XR Interaction Toolkit. So I'm going to click on this drop down, go to Unity Registry. And first I'm going to check and see if they added it here yet. And they haven't. So since it's not here, I'm pretty sure it's not in the previews either. So I'm going to go to Advanced Project Settings. I'm going to hit Enable Pre-Release Packages and hit I understand to see if it's there. I can exit out of here. So what we can do here is click this drop down, hit add package by name, and we say com.xr tom.unity.xr.interaction.toolkit. That's com.unity.xr.interaction.toolkit. Hit add, and that should start the installation of the interaction toolkit for you there. It's going to ask you to restart Unity, so just go ahead and hit yes, so let it do that. Because it's going to be using a new input system, so it's going to have to restart. Alright, so now we are back in Unity here, and we can look here where it says in project. We see we have the XR Interaction Toolkit now. Next, we're going to click on this drop down and go back to the Unity registry, and then scroll all the way down to it says XR Plugin Management. And we're going to import that as well. So go ahead and install that. One thing I did forget, if we go back to the XR Interaction Toolkit. You can see we have the samples here. We're going to click on that drop down for samples. We're going to import these starter assets. So that was going back to the XR Interaction Toolkit and importing the starter assets there. All right, so we have those there. So we can exit out of here, and we want to go back to our file, then build settings. So you can go edit, you can go to edit, then project settings. And at the bottom, you have the XR plugin management in your project settings. You're going to click on that. And here, if you did switch it over to Android, you're going to click on your Android settings. And you're going to click on Oculus. And then you're also going to click on the first one here. And this is for Windows, Mac, pretty much your standalone settings. So you're going to click on that one. And you can click on Oculus. Or if you're building for just standalone HTC Vive or something else, you can hit OpenXR. I'm going to click on Oculus here. And I'll show you, if you click on OpenXR, you can click on it, and then you have to select your controller inputs. And I'll show you that here too. So yes, if you click on your OpenXR, then you have to select your controller settings. So now if I go down here to the XR plugin management, you can see that it has an OpenXR setting here, and the interaction profile is empty. So I'm going to click a plus there, and I can tell which controllers I want to use. So if I'm using Oculus Touch controllers, I can click that. If I also want to target the Vive controllers, I can do that. Eyes Gaze and Microsoft Hands and different things like that. So here you can add some more controllers if you are building for a different sys platform other than the Oculus there. So after that, I can exit out of here, and then I can clear my errors there, and we can go to our checklist here, and we have imported the XR toolkits. All right, so we have imported the XR toolkit. Next, we're going to set up our player, and we're going to use those samples that we downloaded to make this a lot easier for us. So to do that, what we're going to do, you should see a samples folder here. And remember, to get this, we was in our package manager. So window, package manager, and on the interaction toolkit, you'll see samples. And then we have this starter assets, and you want to import that. So with these starter assets, it makes it easy for us to create our player. So I'm going to exit out of that. First thing I'm going to do is set up the controller inputs for our player. So you should see a samples folder. You click on samples, then interaction toolkit, then 2.2.0, then starter assets. And in here, you can see we have a little brochure looking one, and this is where you have a breakdown of the input action. So this is an input action map, and here you can see the breakdown of the controllers and everything. So if you ever want to come in here and change some of the controls, so if you see my XR left hand interaction, the select button is the grip press button. So if you want to come in here, change some of the buttons or anything, this is where you do that at. But we don't have to change anything right now because it's already pre-set up for us. We just got to apply it. So let me exit out of here. So to the right of this little brochure input map here, you can see we have the default left controller preset. And in the inspector at the top, it says add to action-based controller default. We're just going to hit add to action-based controller. And then you're going to look for the right controller as well. And it should be 2 down from that one. You can see XR default right controllers. Hit add to action-based controller. And if it's hard trying to see these, you can use this little slider here. Go all the way left. You can see their names fully. And you go all the way right. It just makes them bigger. So this is how you control the size of your icons down here. So what we did there is we took the default left controller and we clicked up here where it said add to from action-based controller. We added that up here. And then we did the same thing for the right controller. Next, we are going to go to edit, project settings. And then in here, you should see input manager. Not input manager. We want preset manager. So we're going to go to preset manager. And then for the right controller, we're just going to put in right. Then for the left controller, we are going to type in left. And there we go. So that's all we have to do there. So I exit out of that and go back to my main asset folder. Now we can set up our player in the scene. So what we're going to do is right click in the hierarchy. And then alternatively, if you don't want to right click, you can always go up to game object as well. You can see I still have that same menu for the game objects as well. So either right click in the hierarchy and go to XR. You're going to go to XR origin VR. You can see if I open this up, it already has left controller, right hand controller, and it also already has those presets for the controller hands in there. If you do get to this point and you don't see these presets here, what you can do is go back to where that samples are. So if you go back to samples, XR interaction 2.2.0, starter assets, and say I want the left hand controller, what I can do, all I have to do is just drag this up onto the XR controller. Actually, it can autofill for me. So if I grab the right hand controller, you can see they all switched over to the right hand controller settings now. So that's another way you can add your settings to these controllers pretty easily without having to manually do it one by one. I'm going to switch that back to the left controller there. Alright, so next what we need to do, if we look at another thing about our XR origin, the tracking origin here, we want to set that to floor. And that's pretty much going to be the height of the player there. So the height of the camera is going to be based off the how high the player is. If you wanted to do a fixed height, so maybe in like a cockpit or something, or you just want a stationary view for the player that doesn't go up and down, you can switch that to device, and then you can set the camera offset on how high you want it to be off the ground. But I'm going to go to floor. Then also make sure you have this input action manager. It looked like it added it automatically for me this time. But if you don't see an input action manager on your XR origin, then just go to add component and put in input. You're going to look for input action manager. You're going to add that there. And then you're going to add the XR default input actions, which was that input action map that we saw, which is the brochure looking asset that's down in the asset folder. Alright, so now let's add a plane. So I'm going to right click over in the hierarchy, go to 3D object and plane, just so we can have a floor to stand on. And we should be good to test this now, at least for our hands. So I'm going to set up my Oculus so I can test this. So now with my Quest connected to my PC in the Oculus Link mode, I can hit play here and I can see what happens. So there, now you can see I can move my hands around. You can see the little laser pointers going out from my hands when I move my controllers. One thing to note that if you can't move your controllers and they're like stuck on the floor, one of the issues that might be is that you don't have the input action manager and you don't have the XR default input actions here. That's one issue that might be causing that. Another issue that I had was to go to edit and project settings. If you go to XR plugin management, if you have more than one of these box checks, so you can only have OpenXR as by itself. So before what I had Oculus checked and I had OpenXR checked. So you only can have one option at a time. So if you are building for multiple systems on standalone, then you want to just have OpenXR checked with the controller settings in there versus having Oculus and OpenXR checked. So just have one of these checked so you don't run into any issues there. So that should be our player. We set up our player. So continuing to build our player here, one thing we want to do is be able to move around and rotate with our controllers. So to add that functionality here, what we need to do is right click on our XR origin, go down to XR, and then in here you can see locomotion system action base. We're going to add that to our scene here. And in here you can see just hit enter to keep that same name there. And then here in the inspector, you can see we already have the snap turn here, but we need a reference. So if you want to keep the snap turn, all you have to do is reference that to the left or right hand, and then you can have snap turning abilities. So I'm going to add it to the right hand. So hit, not use reference, but input action here, hit this plus. I'm sorry. So yes, I want to use a reference. I'm going to hit use this reference here, and then click on the circle here, and in here you should see right hand turn. So right hand locomotion, and they have a snap turn here. I'm pretty sure that's going to do the same thing, but I always go with just turn here. And then to move, so what we can do is add continuous move. So if you hit this add component down here at the bottom, you hit continue. You can see continuous move provider. And you want the one that says action based. You can't see the whole thing, but it says action based. Let me see if I make this wider. Can you still see it? Nope. So action. We need to reference the locomotion system. So just drag the locomotion system over in there. And then for left hand reference, you're going to click on use reference. And in here, you should see left hand locomotion move. And then going back to the top in the locomotion system, we need to have the XR origin in here as well. So at the top, it says locomotion system. Go ahead and drag in your XR origin in there, and you should be good to go there. So now, if we go in here and hit play, we should be able to turn with our right hand and move with our left. Let me just put on my headset and hit play. So yes, I'm moving with my left hand and I'm turning with my right. I'll go to the edge, I'm gonna look over, and yes, there we go. I'm gonna come out of play, and I'm just gonna check that right turn right quick and see what that does. Right hand snap turn. Probably does the same thing, but we'll see. Yep, does the same thing. But now we have our player able to walk around and turn in our game. And if you wanted them to not snap turn, but continuous turn, like we had a continuous move, we had add component, they also have the continuous turn provided as well. So you can have them continuously turn if you don't like the snap turning feature. So here we are. Now, before we start building our environment, one thing I forgot to do last time was make a prefab of the player. So we can just pull it into other scenes whenever we need to. Since he's already set up, we don't want to go through all that again. So what we can do is first, I'm going to create a prefab folder. So right click, go to create folder, call it prefab. Open that up. I'm just going to drag the XR origin down there to create that prefab of my player. So now going back to that main asset folder, we can now go on to build our environment. And like I said, I'm using the medieval tavern pack to build the environment. So if I open that up, I can go there to tavern pack, go to scenes, and I'll look at the demo scene. And you can save this if you want. You really don't need to. We might come back and build here, but we're just going to start a new scene. So you don't have to save this if you don't want to. As long as you have your prefab, you should be good. So if I look in here, where is everything? You can see that everything is pink. And that is because this is a URP project and these materials need to be converted to URP. So to do that, what we're going to do is go to Window, Rendering, then Render Pipeline Converter. And if you're using an older version of Unity, it's a different way of doing this. This is Unity 2021. and this is how you convert these materials with Unity 2021. So go to rendering pipeline converter. Click on this drop down and say built into URP. You're going to click on material upgrade. Then you're going to initialize the converter. And then you're going to convert asset. And you can exit out of that. And now you can see everything looks like it's supposed to look. So you have this room here with a lot of nice things that we're going to use for our escape room. And then you also have this other demo scene 2, which is more of a like wooden tavern there. So this is what we're going to be using to build our escape room. So what we're going to do, I'm going to go to File, New Scene. I'm just going to do a standard URP. That's fine. Hit Create. If you can, I'm just going to do a basic URP just so I don't have to save it right now. Save some time, I guess. But here in this blank scene, I can go to Medium Tavern Pack. I can create a plane. So when you go in here, let's take a step back. Look at this Medieval Tavern Pack folder. If you go to prefabs, you can see they have it already laid out for you the different assets here. So you got your architecture, your furniture, your ornaments, and your tableware. So we can open up this architecture folder here. And in here, if I make this a little bigger, you can kind of see the pictures of what these look like. So you can know what you're grabbing. So I'm going to start with a floor piece here. I'm going to drag that up into my scene. Then I can reset the transform by going over in the hierarchy, to the inspector, and right clicking on the transform, hit reset. And alternatively, you can click these 3 dots on the side and go to reset as well. Now I know this floor piece is at 0, 0, 0. I'm going to start building out my floor. So I'm just going to take that piece, hit Control D, move it out. Then I'm going to hold the V key so I can snap it to the edge of the other piece. And before I get too far along in this, I'm going to create an empty game object to hold all of my environment pieces. So I'm going to right click in the hierarchy, go to create empty. I'll call it the room. Then I'm going to reset the transform. And then I'm going to take those 2 floor pieces and just throw those into the room. Then with those 2 floor pieces, I'm going to highlight both of those by holding Control and clicking on them. And then I'm going to hit Control D to duplicate it. And then I'm going to move that out and do the same thing. Hold the V key. Oh, I lost it. There we go. Hold the V key. Hold the V key. Well, I just snap them individually, I guess. Come on. There we go. So now we snap those there. Then I'm going to highlight all of those. Hit Control D. Move it out. Oh. Move it out. Hold the V key again. Snap it there. Highlight everything. And alternatively, if you hit the top game object and the bottom game object, while holding shift, you can select all that within that region. So if I click on the top, hold shift, click on the bottom, I can select all of those game objects in between. So I grabbed all those, I'm gonna hit Control D, move it out there, hold V. I did it again. I don't know why this V key not working for me. Hopefully it's working for you and you don't have to do all these individually. And that looks pretty big. One thing you can do as well, so you can get like a gauge of how big these things are, you can look at the little grid system here. So everything is scaled to be 1 meter. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4 meters long, a 4 by 4 meter room here. But another thing you can do is just go ahead and grab your player prefab. So I go to prefabs and then just drag my XR origin up into the scene. From here, I can just hit play and just see how big it is to my player. You can see, looking at it, it still looks kind of small, so I'm gonna make it bigger. There are other ways to do this. You can see I'm just grabbing all of these and duplicating it. And one issue you might have with this is just it's making a lot of like these box colliders here, things like that. So that's going to build up memory and things like that. So if you are trying to optimize and things like that, you can probably just make this like one big piece and put it here in the room. And think I'm going to do that instead of having all these floor pieces here. What I'm going to do is delete those. I'm going to right click on the room, go to 3D objects and plane. And now you can see when I add a plane here, it's a lot bigger than those floor pieces. Here you can see it's a 10 by 10 grid, 10 by 10 square here. So that's one thing to note. When you add a plane to your scene, your plane is 10 times bigger than like a quad or your other game objects. You still see that the scale says 1 by 1 by 1, but it's actually a 10 by 10 area that it takes up here. So to pretty much get that floor that I had before, what I'm going to do is right click down in my asset folder, go to create. First I'm going to create a materials folder. Say materials, open that up, and I'm going to right click, go to create, and then go to material. And I can say wooden floor. And what I can do, I can just click on this wooden floor material and drag it up to my plane here. And then once I do that, I can go, make sure I click, well, I can go to my assets, go back to that medieval tabbing pack. Then you can see we have the textures here, the architecture textures. And you should see a floor. So you can see you have your floors there. And you can just drag that up to your plane. So if I click on plane, and you can see I have this wooden floor material here. Sorry, I said drag it up, but we're not going to do that. We're going to click on the plane here. And at the bottom in the inspector, you can see we have that wooden floor material. So what we can do is just drag on our floor to the base map and then drag on the floor normal map to the normal map. And you can see now we have a detailed floor there, but it looks kind of big for what we need here. So to reduce that size of what it looks like, we're going to go to the tiling setting and we're going to increase the tiling. So I put 5 by 5 there, and you can see now that's starting to look better. So now we just have, instead of having all those different floor pieces, we just have that one mesh collider. So we have our floor. Now let's put some walls up. I'll go back to architecture, go to prefabs, and then architecture again. And we can see we have the walls. And you might think, why can't I do the same for the walls? You can just make like one big long cube. You can do another plane. But the issue with the walls and with this asset pack is they are like a specific type of model. And what I mean by that, if you look at this model here, you can see it has like a little ridge there on the wall. So it's not exactly a flat piece where you can just put the texture map on it. And the map is a little more complicated than it was before. If I look at this texture map here, you can see it's a little more complicated because it has the color of the wall, has the colors of the bottom wood pieces here, the colors of the border here and all that kind of stuff. So it's a little different than actually when I applied this floor piece here. But we're still going to add these here. So I have this one wall. Make sure you put it into your room game object so it's under there. You want to click on it, hold V, and move it to a corner. Go back to my prefabs, architecture. And then there's also some windows you can add too. So make sure, a couple things we're going to need here. One is going to be the door. So let's go ahead and get a door in there. And I'm going to move that back. Then I'm going to align it at the top. Just find an easy way. So like I said, just hold V and snap it to where it needs to be. For this, I'm also going to move it forward. So like that. So you can see I don't have that little gap there anymore. And then I'm going to move this wall forward. Snap to the other wall. There we go. That looks nice and good to me. I'm going to add a window so you can see who's at the door. Then I'm going to take this wall here, hit Control D to duplicate it, move it down, hold V, snap it, Control D again, move it down, hold V, snap it. Make sure it's lined up correctly and snap it. Now I'm just going to continue to build out the room. So let me continue to build out these 4 walls and add some more structures here. So this is where you can be more creative. You make your room look however you want, add some furniture and add some more decor, and just get your room looking nice. One thing I want to show you is how to add a roof over here. Um, so to do that, what I'm going to do, I'm just click on this floor here, and I can hit Control D to duplicate that and move it up. And then I can flip it on the X by 180. Now you can see I have a roof on top of me there. And you can still see one thing about doing this method is that the light that's coming through is still showing shadows from the directional light. And we're going to fix that later. What we're actually going to do is just get rid of this directional light and throw some lights in here ourselves, so we just have our own internal lights here. So that's just one thing to note here as you're developing as well. But we're going to handle that a little later. So we're going to make sure we take all of these assets that we grabbed. I'm going to throw that into our room here just to clean up our hierarchy. And now we have a basic room here for us to use. So we build the environment. So our next objective here is to create an interactable game objects for our game. So the objective of our game is to find a red ball and a blue ball, and then pick those up and put them in their correct places, pretty much like the keyhole to unlock the door. And that's all going to make sense here in a second. And once we make our things here, so let's go ahead and make our red ball and blue ball that are grabbable by our player. So to do that, what we're going to do is we can right click over here in the hierarchy, go down to 3D object and create a sphere. I'm going to reset the position by going over to the transform, right clicking, hit reset. Now you can see it's in the middle of my room here. I'm going to resize it. So I'm going to unclick this so that they can all resize proportionally to X, Y, and Z. And let's go 0.5. That's kind of big, 0.25. So now we have this ball in the room. And go add components. And I can add, if I start typing in grab, I can add the XR grab interactable. And just like that, I should be able to grab it in VR. So let's let me put on my headset. Now if I play, you can see the ball there. And when I move my little line over it, you can see it turns white. And if I pull the, not the trigger, but the thumb grip button, I can grab it. Some things you might notice, if I move forward while holding this, it moves down my line. And we don't want that to happen. So let's fix that right quick. So I come out of play mode. If I click on this sphere that we just created, in here, there is an option. I believe it's this, not track position. It is contain transform parent. Magic track position. There is an option to turn off to make it not go far out when you grab it. I'm pretty sure. Let me just test things out. Original parent. Object is drop. Track position. Track rotation. I might have to come back to that. I'm pretty sure maybe they changed things around. There should be an option to not have it follow the parent. But let me make sure it is, see if it's on the controller side. So I'm on my left hand controller and anchor control. So here it is right here. So we want to turn off this anchor control, and it says allows the user to move the attached anchor point using the thumbstick. So we want to turn that off on both the left and the right hand. So now when we grab objects, they won't slide down the line like you just saw. So we have this one sphere here. So let's go ahead and finish setting this up. So let's call this the red sphere. Let's call it red key. Since it's going to act as a key for us. And I'm going to go to my materials folder, create a new material. and call it red. Then I'm going to go over to the material base color and make it red. Go a little dark red there. Then I can just click on this material and drag it over to my red key. I'm going to click on my red key and duplicate it by selecting it, hit Control D, and call this my blue key. And then just duplicate this material, rename it to blue, right click, rename, blue, and then make it a blue color there. So my blue key, I'll move it to the right a little bit. And now I have a red key and a blue key. So if I come back in VR, play, you see I have a red sphere, my blue sphere, and I can pick them up. And then when I move on my thumbstick, they don't move. I have a red and a blue. So now what we're going to add is their locations where you got to take them to snap to get out. So what I mean by that is going to be, it's called a socket. And what we want to do is right click in our hierarchy, go to XR, and in here you see a socket interactor. So I can click on socket interactor, hit reset that position so I know where it is. So what a socket interactor is, it's pretty much a snap point for objects. So you may have played a game where you might have a gun snap to your hip or something like that, and you can, like, when you put it close to that area, it automatically snaps in place. So that's what a socket interactor does. It allows you to snap things to place. And this is what we're going to use for our balls. So what I can do is, so I know what this is, I can make a child sphere. So I can go to 3D object, put sphere. I don't need the sphere collider on this one, so I can just go ahead and remove that. And then I can resize it to 0.25. There we go. And then I can create a material for this one. So let's say this is for my red spot. So I can just go to this red material here and duplicate it by hitting Control D. And then on this duplicated one, I'll change the opacity to transparent and then change the alpha down a little bit. And then I'll put that onto my sphere. So now, and then I will also make like a highlight color so we know when something is hovering over this. So I can go to create, material, and I can just use my red color. So I won't make a new material for this. That's what I'm going to do. So if you look at this socket interactor, it has a hover mesh material. So when something is hovering, that can be placed there, it's hovering over it, it can change the material color. So what I'm going to do is just use this darker red color as the hover material. And then you also have a can't hover material there as well. So if you do have another material you want to set, so when you know it doesn't go here, you can put that there as well. So in theory, what this does when a object is hovering in this spot, it's going to snap to this area. So let's just test that out. So you can see I have my red ball here, the blue one I guess. So I walk over here and I put this over. You can see it highlights red because it can snap there. Same with the blue. And when I let go, now my blue ball is right there. And I can grab it out, put it back in, grab it out, put it back in. So I have those two there. So now we have this snap point here, but let's say we want only the red ball to go here, which is what we want in the game. So if we just want the red ball to come here, what we need to do is create a custom interaction layer mask. So I click this drop down here, I can add a layer, and I can call this red. And then if I go to my red key and scroll down in the XR grab interactable component, it has an interaction layer here as well. So I can click on that and change it to red. Oh, well, it went to everything. So I'm going to go nothing, then change it to red. And then for my socket interactor, make sure, see, I did the same thing there. Go nothing, then red. And then I'm going to go ahead and just do the same thing for my blue one so we can just test them both out at the same time. So what I'm going to do is duplicate my socket interactor here, move it over, and then I'm going to create another one, another layer called blue. And then for this socket interactor, go nothing, then blue, go my blue key, go to my interaction layer and set that to blue. And now I just need to change this sphere color to blue. So go back to my materials, click on my blue color there, duplicate it, and change its opacity to transparent. And then change the alpha down a little bit. And then drag that up to that sphere to make that hollow sphere there. Now, what we need to do is test it out. Hit play. So if I grab my red ball, my blue ball, so if I try to put this red ball here, it does not go. See, it just falls straight down. If I put the blue in there, you can see it has that highlight color. Blue. And same here. If I put the red one there, blue. I can let them go. There. There. So that's what's going to trigger the door to open when we're done and everything. So that's how you set up interactable objects. Let's say you wanted to set up something different though, besides one of these basic elements here. Let's see, we know we got an X in here from our asset pack. So let's say we wanted to grab this X here. When you want to make if we look at this blue key, we can see what it has. When we make it interactable, we need a collider, a rigid body, and we need the grabbable script there. So with this axe, it has a box collider already. So just make it, type in grab the grab interactable. One thing we might want to do though is to edit the box collider so you can only grab like the edge down here maybe. We have the handle. So that will be the grabbable area for the axe. And you see to edit the rigid body, it has everything else we need. And just for fun, let's see what happens when we change this to red. And just see how it would snap to this position here. So let's go test that out. So there, pick it up and hold my axe. I'll bring it over here. You see that? So when you do have a non-regular geometry item and you want it to snap to a position, you can see when I bring it over here, it lets me know that I can snap here by creating a little outline of the item. So here you can see it made an outline of the axe, which is pretty cool. So in case you don't want to use the spheres, you can use some of these other items that are in this asset pack to make your escape room. So there we made our interactable objects there. All right, so here we are. back in our room. And next we want to set up our when condition. And we are going to write that in code for us. So let's get that started. And we're going to do this in a way so you can reuse this script for other projects as well. So what we're going to do here is down in our asset folder, going to right click, go to create, then C# script, and we're going to call this a score script. Then we're going to open that up. All right, so we have our score script open. So let's go up here and start writing our variables that we need. First, we're going to say, get a box bracket in here. Say serialized field. Hold on, there we go. Private int score. And then we are going to hit enter, have another one, serialized field, private int, and we can say final score. Then we are going to say serialized field, private unity event. There we go, unity event. And then we call this when action. So let's save there. And we're going to write a function to handle our score and what happens when we hit that score. So hit enter here a couple times under the update. I'm going to say public void score. Or I can say update score. It's a good name for this. Then I can say score plus plus. And then I say if score is equal to final score. Oh. Then I can trigger my when action. So I made this public, so if anything else wants to access this update score, then it can do so, and we'll see that when we get back to Unity. That's why I set this as a public void and not private, because I want other scripts and other components to be able to access this. We don't need this start and update here, and we want to try to, when we are writing your games, making your games and your things, you want to use the update as least as possible. So if you can make your code work without using an update, then that's good. So let's delete these, hit save, and go back to Unity. Now, in our hierarchy, we're going to create an empty game object, call this the game manager. I'm going to reset the transform. And in here, I'm going to add that score script there. And now you can see we have a score. And this is just, the score is just there so we can see as we testing things out. We really didn't have to make it a serialized field, but just for testing purposes, I put it there so we can see it in the editor. And then we have our final score. I want to set that to 2. And then we have our when action. And in this case, we want this door to open. So for this when action, what we can do is just hit this plus. Then I can lock my inspector, click on the door, drag it over into that when action, click on the no function, go to game object, and set active this boolean for set active. So now when this when action is invoked or triggered, it's going to turn the door off. So we tell them to set active and to turn off. So now I can unlock this. And like I said before, we are going to put that function onto another game object, the update score. So if I click on my socket interactor, I'm going to scroll down, you can see we have these interactor events. So these are events that can trigger when things are hovering over it, when things are out of hovering it, and then when things are placed inside of it is what this select means. So in here I can say, click on this select entered, put my game manager down here, go to no function, go to my score script, and then hit update score, and that's going to update that score for me. And I'll do the same for my other socket interactor. Score, hit save, and now I can test it out. Yep, hit play. So if I pick up these two balls here, walk them over, place the red one there, place the blue one there. You saw the door open there. But we kind of have a problem here. If I look at my game manager, you see my score is at 2, but if I bring this ball out and put it back there, my score went to 3. And this is a problem because now, if I come out of play and go back in, this is a problem because say if I take this blue ball here and place it in there, and then grab it back out and put it back, and my door open. So that's the issue. So let's fix that right now. So if we think about this problem, a way to fix this is to not be able to grab the ball once it's in the socket interactor. So a way to easily fix this issue, if we go to the socket interactor, and we know this one's one for the red ball, we go back to this unity event, or the select event, we hit this plus, and we take the red key, drag it in there, go down to no function, and then on the sphere collider, it also has a boolean to make it active. So we can just click on this boolean to disable this sphere collider, because to grab something, you need a sphere collider and a rigid body. So if we turn off the sphere collider, then we won't be able to grab it. We'll click over to this other one and do the same thing for our blue key. Sphere collider, and turn that off. And then alternatively, you can also do the thing for the rigid body, I believe. Use gravity, sleep. So yeah, if you turn on the sleep, I believe you can do the same thing as well. Turn off the rigid body, it's putting it to sleep. But I'll go to sphere collider route. And that's with this box being unchecked, that means I want it to turn off. So now let's go test it. Then I'll click my game manager so you can see the score there. So I grab the blue ball, grab the red ball, walk over here, put that there. Now you can see when I put my little laser on it, I can't grab it now. Then put this over here, and now we have our door open. So now we have a script that keeps track of the score, and we can use this for any other occasion, so any other game, any other condition, we can put in here for our win action. So let's say we wanted like a bear to come out and start dancing, then we can have this win action to play that bear animation dancing. So we can use this script over and over again, and not just for this use case. All right, so next we need to set our lose condition. And for this, we're just going to have a simple timer to count down our game. So to do this, we're going to create another script, and this is also going to be a script that you can use for other games and other projects as well. So let's just go down here in our asset folder, right click, go to create. And also, if you don't want to go this way, you can also go up here to, not component, but asset, create, C# script. And here we can say timer script. So go ahead and create that. And then open that up in Visual Studio. So here we are in our timer script, and we are going to be using Text Mesh Pro, so we can use that for our text box that's going to pretty much display the time and things like that. So up here in the libraries here, we're just going to say using TM Pro. And then next, we are going to be adding our variables down here. So first, we're going to need a serialized game object. So serialize, private, float, not game object, say game object, but we need a float for the current time. And then we're going to need another one. Say private, float, and call this display time. And this will make sense here in a second. And then we need to access that text box. Serialized field, private. And I'm making these serialized because I don't, for now, nothing else needs to access these variables. TMP underscore text, and say display text. All right. So now, down in our update, since this is going to be controlling with time, to subtract our time, what we can do is say current time minus equals time dot delta time. And what this pretty much going to do is subtract 1 second from our current time. We're going to set the current time in the editor, so we can set it to 30 seconds, 60 seconds, to have whatever time we want it to be. And then in our update is going to subtract 1 second from that. And then to show the display, what we can do is say display text dot text equals current time. And we'll just go see what this does. Move my mouse. Current time dot toString, and that's going to convert that float to a string value to display there. So let's save this, go back to Unity. And we are going to go to our game manager. Oh, let me remove that. That was some testing I was doing. And we're going to put this timer script on our game manager. So, like I said, our current time, and we can say this is, say, 30. And then we have our display time once we create a canvas. So we are going to create a canvas for our text box. So we're going to go over to the hierarchy, right click, go to UI. Well, we can go down to XR, then we go to UI canvas. So this canvas is already going to be set up as a world space canvas, set up for VR. I'm going to reset the transform. just so I know it says 0, 0, 0. Then on the canvas, I'm going to right click, go to UI, and put Text Mesh Pro text there. And if you get a box prompting you to import it, then go ahead and import it. So now you can see I have this large text here. To make it smaller, I'm going to just change the scale. And the scale, I'm going to change to 0.02. And pretty big, so let's go 0.01. And then down here, you can adjust your fonts. You imported your own fonts. You can change it if you want. But I'm going to align it to the middle of this text box. And then also, if you want to outline your text, you can hit this outline box and put a thickness there. I'm going to click on this canvas and then move this timer to be above the door. And make sure, for me, I want to make sure I move the whole canvas and not just this text box. I'm going to add some other stuff to this canvas, like some buttons to restart the game or just exit the game. So that's why I want to move the whole canvas, so it's all here, nice and centered with this text box, with this text here. So now if we go to our game manager, it's looking for this display text, and we can just drag in this text from our canvas there. And now we can hit play and see what that looks like. And you see we have our time now, and it's going down each second, but we have all these decimal places there, and we don't want to show that because it looks like a lot's going on. So let's go in our code and fix that. So if we go back to our script, that's why we have this display time. This display time is going to correct for that, well, it's going to take out those decimal places there for us. So what we can do here is say our display time equals math f dot round, and we can say our current time. So like I said, this is going to round that value for us. So using the math function to round out the current time. And then in here for the display text.text, we can change that to our display text. Display time. So now if we go back in Unity and see what this looks like. Play. Now you can see I have nice rounded numbers of it counting down those seconds, and I don't have all of those decimal values there. So it's nice and neat now. All right, so let's go back to our script and add a few more things to clean it up. So we want to pretty much, when the timer hits 0, we want to say game over and do some other things. So let's go ahead and do that condition. So we're going to say if our current time is less than 0, then we can say display text dot text equals game over. So if our time gets below 0, then we're going to say game over, and then we're going to throw a else statement in here to control our display time. So else, sorry, there we go. We're going to say, we're pretty much going to take this display text here on line 22. I'm going to throw that in that condition. So else, we want to show the display time. So let me just delete this and then explain. So we're going to say if our current timer is less than 0, then show game over. So when it hits 0, show game over. And then if it's at any other number, then we're just going to show the displayed time that we have here. And then just to make it look a little better, we're going to say plus S. So that's going to throw an S on the back of that to say how many seconds it is. And we can go see that in Unity. So let's go back to Unity. Then I'll shorten this time, let's say 5, so we don't have to sit here and wait till it to go all the way down. So I hit play. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, game over. So there we go. It says game over when it hits 0. Let's look at our code one more time just to go over it again. So we're saying if our current time is less than 0 to show game over, and then if it's at any other number or any other value, then it's going to show that time. That's what we have there. We don't need this start here, so we can just delete it. Let's go back. So now we want to display the game over text box. And we can do the same thing for like we did with this event here. And let me think right quick. So let's do it. I'll show you a different way to add a text box here. So what we can do is, so you can either do another Unity event and trigger a box, if you say. So you can do another Unity event here and say that you want to show your game over box that way, or you can have it all controlled in this script here. Since we already got one text box, we can expound upon that and make some other things as well. So if I go back here on my canvas, let's go ahead and make a panel. I'll say panel. And then I can change this scale to 0.2 or 0.02. And that looks pretty good to me. Move it up a little bit. And then on this panel, I'm going to create 2 buttons. So UI button. Then I'm going to scale that down to about 0.5. And this one is going to say play again. Call it my reset button there. And then I can duplicate that and call this my exit. And then for this text, I'll say exit, and then I'll move my reset button up a little bit, my exit button down a little bit. So when the game is over, I want this text box to show up and to display the text. So let's go back to our code. And to do this, what we can do is just make the game object appear. So we can go add a serialized private game object. So we can say serialized field, private game object. We can call this game over box. And then if the timer is below 0, we can say game over box dot set active and say true. And save that. So this is how you can set things active in your code versus having it in the script like we showed with the Unity events. So we can save that, go back to Unity. And then for this panel, I can turn it off by clicking the little check box in the inspector. And then back on the game manager, where it's looking for the game over box, I can do that and drag that over, drag this panel over to the game over box. And now when I hit play, and when it hits 0, that panel should pop up. There we go. And now I can say play again and exit. Another thing that might be good is to stop the game physics. So if you do have like animations and things that are moving in your game and you just want everything to just stop when the game is over, you can turn off the time. So if this time gets to 0, you can say time.timescale and set that to 0. And what that does is turn off the pretty much the physics engine of the game. But so like say if you had like gravity or the ball moving or something moving in your game, like I said, an animation or something playing, what that does, it pretty much pauses the game. So back in the day, we hit pause, everything stopped, and nothing was moving. So that's pretty much what this does. It just pauses your game. And I don't think we have a lot of moving objects in here, so we won't be able to really see anything. So one thing we need to do is to reset those, either reset this scene and exit the game, because when this panel pops up, we have these two buttons here to do something. So let's make those buttons do something. We're going to create another script to control our button inputs. So create C# script, and I'm going to call this my button manager. And all this is going to do is hold our functions for our buttons. We are going to go up to these libraries and say using Unity engine dot scene manager. Go. So using Unity engine dot scene manager, we won't need our update and start functions here. And we can say public void reset game. And then we can say scene manager dot load scene. And here you can either put the number of the scene, I'll show you this in a second, the number of the scene, or the name of the scene. So I can put a 0 in here, and I'll show you what that means here in a second. This error just threw me off. So you need engine.scene management. That's the name of it. It looked like it already added it to me. So make sure you say using Unity engine.scene management is what we're going to be using. So reset the game, scene manager.load scene 0, and then exit the game, public void exit game. Here we're just going to say application dot quit. And that's going to exit out the game for us. So we have these two buttons here. Go back to Unity. Go back to our game manager and put our button manager there. And then for our reset, we're going to go back to this canvas here. And you can turn this panel back on. You just want to see your displays here. If these icons are getting in the way, you can turn off the gizmos right there with this little button over here to toggle off the gizmos. So let's click on the reset button, go down to the on click event here, hit the plus, drag in the game manager, click on no function, then button manager, and we're going to say reset game, then exit, on click manager, game manager, drag it over, no function, button manager, exit game. So what I was talking about for the scene manager, we look at the script one more time, where it says the load scene 0. What I was talking about, if I go to File, Build Settings, I'm talking about this scenes in my build here. This, I don't know why it's so big. So when you have multiple scenes for your game, when you're ready to build it, you need to make sure you have your scene in this list. And you can see now this escape room is not in this list. So if I click this button, nothing will happen. Well, it's going to load this scene that's in this 0 spot. So if I add my open scene, you can see now my escape room is 1. But if I had it, since I got 0 there, if I click this button now, it's going to load my sample scene. So what I can do is either switch these positions here, or since I know I'm not going to be using this sample scene, I can just delete it. So I deleted that sample scene. And what I was saying before, you can either have this 0 here to let it know this is the scene you want to load, or you can use the name of the scene. So escape room, if I go back here, it's also allowed to do this. And then it will look for the name of this scene to load it. But one thing about this is using using string values and using text. You might misspell it, and different things like that. It also hinders performance as well. It takes longer for the computer to process string values versus just integers and numbers and things like that. So if you know exactly the number you're seeing, you can just hit that number in there and save it. That sounds like a lot. uh, Mouthful, but now we're ready to test it. So let me just turn this panel off. Then for my game manager, I'll add 10 seconds so it gives me time to get on my headset. Hit play. Now, you see I got my timer there going. Hit 0 out of this box, and you can see it's already set up to have the input from the controller. So I can hit play again, and it reloads there for me. Oh, something is wrong, and I know what. So since we told it to stop the game clock, that's why when I reset the scene, it stayed at 10 and it's not moving, because if I go back to my timer script, I told it to stop my time scale here. So there's two ways we can fix this. One is we can utilize the start method and say void start. If we want to put that back in here, we can say time.timescale equals 1. So as soon as the game starts, it's going to set that time scale to 1. Or another thing we can do is take this line of code and put it over here. So when we reset the game, it sets the time scale to 1. So either one will work. So whichever one floats your boat. I think I'm going to go with this start here, just so all the time stuff is all centered on one script. So when it starts, it's going to set that time scale to 1 and start the timer, and then do all the game stuff. So let's go ahead and test this out. Hit play. All right, play again. And there we go. See it restart the time there. I'll pick up my axe if I want to. Put it there. Then if I hit exit, I get an error. Didn't get an error. Why didn't it quit? Let me see. It should have. I think it should have brought me out of play mode. Application dot. See if there's an exit. No. Yeah, it should be quit. But yeah, it should have took me out of play mode. But we'll come back in our next video. Let me troubleshoot that a little bit, and then we can come back in our next video and see what's up with that. But we have set our lose condition there. All right, so we are pretty much done with the core mechanics of our game and what needs to happen here. So the last thing on our list here is just to build it out and test it on a device. For me, like we said at the beginning, if I go to File, Build Settings, I want to test this on the Quest. So at the beginning, I switched it over to Android, and all I have to do is hit Build, and it's going to start building the game for me. The first build usually takes the longest, so after that, it should be quicker, so I can just hit Build, and it's going to build out the game for me. If you are doing a standalone, make sure you are on Windows, Mac, and Linux. But I'm going to just go ahead and hit Build here, and then create the name for it. I just call it Escape Room. You go and save and let it build. So after it's done building, you can see I have my APK file that is 67 megabytes big, so not that big at all. One thing we can do to see exactly the size of things, if we wanted to like reduce the size of stuff, if we had like some type of size, capacity, limit or anything like that, if you go to your console, after you build the game, if you go to console, click on this drop down here, and hit open editor log. And in this editor log, you can search for, hit Control F and put in build report. Go to find next. And here you can see how the size of different things. So you can see my textures are taking up 97% of my build, taking up 78 megabytes. Oh, that's weird because it's not how big my game is. I guess because it makes like a zip file type thing. But you can see like the size of different things here. So if you wanted to like reduce the size of something in here, you can do that in here. So say this fireplace texture here, if I grab this, Control C, copy that, go back to my project and search it over here. And here it is. So what I can do here, I can see it's 5.3 megabytes. If I wanted to reduce this size, I can hit this override and reduce this max size to 1012, hit apply. And now you can see it's 1.3 megabytes. So that reduces the size of my build. And then for me, I use SideQuest to put my apps onto my system. So what I can do is just open up SideQuest. And it says my Oculus is connected. And then what my APK is, I can just drag that over here and upload it to my Quest and test it out on there. So that's how we would test it. And that's pretty much the end of development. Next, we can polish it up and things like that. Let me open up my sticky pad. Cross that out. And like I said, next we'll do something special here. Let me undo that button. We'll just add another thing so we can make it look a little nicer, make it a little more complicated than what it is now. But here's a basic, simple escape room. You can go ahead and add some more to it, take away from it, just use it for your portfolio and things.